You're listening to Bold Hearts, Big Moves, the show for female entrepreneurs who want it all: a thriving business, deep self love, and fulfilling relationships. I'm Erin Anderson, and each week we will dive into how to set stronger boundaries, make empowered choices, and show up in life and business with boldness, authenticity, and heart. Because let's be real, the money you make is directly related to the love that you have for yourself and the strength of your relationships. So if you're ready to lead with love and make those big moves with those bold hearts, let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Bold Hearts, Big Moves. Guys, we're back with Taylor Proctor. Okay, I am so excited for this particular podcast because last time, if you guys remember, Taylor being here, she gave us some great information about like manifestation and getting to that 8 figures, right? But today she also mentioned the 60 different types of intuition. And I was like, oh, we have so got to do a podcast episode on that because what a more important piece to the feminine energy than intuition, right, Taylor?
Definitely.
So, like, I know for me, like, I make so many intuitive decisions and I love it because they usually end up being so spot on. But for me, like, my intuition is like all gut related, right? Like, I listen to my gut, it takes me all kinds of different directions, and it usually ends up being something really amazing. And listening to my gut definitely brought me to 6 figures, and it's going beyond that this year. So, tell us about these different types of intuition because I know yours is a sense of adventure.
Yeah. So actually, I think it might help to share a little bit of a story first because
Okay.
I'm one of those people that I didn't necessarily believe in intuition. And in fact, like I grew up as a member of a religious organization that would have stories about, oh, they get up in a meeting and share how I just had this thought or I heard this voice say, lock the door. And I went and I locked the door right as somebody jiggled it to come in and was going to come and
Mm.
rob the house. Or even so much so that my own father would share stories of how he had dreams. He had a dream about my mother before he met her. And he knew when he met her that she was who he was supposed to be with because he'd
Mm.
had this dream, right? So I grew up in a space where people were very much about like listening to your intuition, having these things happen. And little old me was like, I got nothing. There's nothing here. Everybody around me is intuitive and I got nothing. And I didn't really mind that so much until I got into business and I was part of a coaching group. And in
Hmm.
this group, the leader was very intuitive. And I was surrounded by these other business owners that were intuitive. And they would say, oh, I just got this download and this idea, and I released it and I had a $10,000 day. And I share this because you all might think less of me, but I know I can't be the only one that thinks this way. I was livid. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yes, yes.
Right? Like, and it wasn't a comparison or a competition type of thing, but I was like, I am just as smart as that person. I am just as skilled. I have a little bit more experience in doing these things. Like, why can't I get my business up off the ground to where I want it to be? When here's these people that are just like, oh, I just had this thought and it worked. And I'm like, what in the world? And so I was very mad that I didn't feel like I had intuition. And
Mm.
while I was happy and grateful and stoked for those other people, there was that small part of me that was like, what the heck? Why don't I have this super secret power that it seems everybody has to be able to get to those 6 figure years
Right.
or 5 figure months or whatever it is? Why don't I seem to have that? And so I actually got really mad. like really mad
Yeah,
about,
I've been there.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally been there.
And there was a lot of like, well, from a belief in God, why is God helping all these people and not me? And they have this direct line of communication and it seems like I don't. And
Hmm.
I would hear things like, "Oh, I just got this gut feeling." And I'm like, "I'm not getting that." And that coach was like, "Oh, I just got full body tingles." I'm like, "I'm not getting that." Right? It was just all of these pieces where I was just mad at God and the universe and what was so wrong with me that I didn't have this super secret, incredible power to tap into.
Right.
And through that anger, I started to really explore, okay, what is intuition? And I got varying results, right? I got, oh, it's your gut, it's this, it's that, it's this. And I ended up discovering through an intuitive coach that there are actually over 60, that is 60 different ways that you can tap into and receive intuitive hits.
Mm.
And that changed the game for me
Yeah, I
because
bet.
I realized that there are some of these that are more popular. Like you often hear about the clairs, right? The clair
Hmm.
senses. So that's your
Hmm.
clairvoyance,
Clairvoyance.
clairaudience. That's your
Hmm.
all of those, which is essentially your five senses. And so you hear about that, but you didn't hear about the other 55
Right.
different ways that people can receive intuition. And so I started diving into it and exploring it. And I realized that intuition for the individual and for myself is as unique as your fingerprint.
Yes.
And it's as unique as your fingerprint in a situational environment, meaning how your intuition comes to you as a parent. So, my sister, very intuitive, could always feel when something was wrong with my niece and my nephews, could always feel when something was wrong with the kids. But her intuitive, when it comes to her business, her intuitive strength is different there. And so, when we look at, if we just put this blanket over intuition and say, oh, you're supposed to just hear a voice and call it good. Then if you're in a situation where you're like, I really could use some help and support here in making these decisions, and you don't hear a voice, you may think you don't have intuition. Like I thought I didn't have intuition.
Mm.
So you brought up that my top intuitive strength is a sense of adventure. That
Right.
sense of adventure is actually situationally based. For me, that sense of adventure for my top intuitive strength is under business strategy. So when I'm looking at what to move forward with in my business, what are the pieces that are going to come into play to help support me? If I have that idea of a sense of adventure, then I know it's aligned and it's the right fit. And for the audience, if you didn't catch our last episode, go check it out. But also, a sense of adventure is, I love to liken it to hiking up a mountain.
Right.
Sometimes you like hiking.
Yes.
And you're like, I've got my thick socks, I've got my boots, I've got my backpack with my water and my granola bars, and I'm taking my dog, so I've got the poop bags, right? And I'm just so excited to go up the mountain, and every turn in the trail is a new vista and a new lookout, and it's beautiful. And I'm so excited. And oh, another turn, and we're not there yet, but it's amazing, and I love it. The
Right.
opposite of a sense of adventure is, oh gosh, we've got to get up early and go hiking. Ugh. And I've got to carry my dog's poop around because they pooped in the first mile and this thing's 5 miles long. Right. And every turn you're like, can this just be done? Cool, great view. I don't care about the top. Let's just turn around. Right. And
Right.
there's a big difference between those two. And you can start to feel, for me at least, I could start to feel when I found that sense of adventure and was like, this is the way to go, versus that, oh, I should. Like, how many times it's like, we should go outside, we should go hiking, we should. And you're
We
like,
should on ourselves.
yeah.
Literally.
And I live in the state of Utah, so mountains everywhere. My
Right.
backyard literally opens up to Bureau of Land Management land and a trail. And you have that thought of, I should go hiking. But if you don't feel that pull and that sense of adventure, it just leads to shame and shoulds
Hmm.
and this like, oh, do I really have to? And when I looked at that when it came to business strategy,
Mm-hmm.
Big difference between I feel like I have to do this for my business versus I want to and I'm excited and I can't wait to see how it turns out.
Yes.
And I should go hike that trail behind my house. I should go post on social media every day, or I should do blah, 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 blah. But reality is, when I could start tapping into my intuition for that sense of adventure, then my business started taking off. And I think the most important part of this was I didn't think I wasn't intuitive anymore. I realized everyone's
That's
intuitive.
important.
It's like a fingerprint.
Yes.
And I did have that
Yes.
super secret power that everybody else seemed to have. It was just different for me. And it's so different for every one of my clients I work with too, that by knowing, and we can go into this, but by knowing what your top strengths are, it really equips you to start to succeed and thrive in business. And then when you know what your top strengths are in other areas of your life, you start to succeed and thrive there too. And it's all in taking this aligned and congruent
Yes.
action.
Yes. Yes, so much so. And because the thing is like intuition should lead you to trusting yourself, right? That's all what it's all about, right? Like I talk about that gut feeling, and I definitely do get like those intuitive hits, and sometimes like my spine is like, woo, right? Like it's totally like vibrating, and like the energy around me vibrates, and it's so cool. But I get like what you're saying too, like with that sense of adventure, because like this year, especially, you know, with me deciding that I want to do something completely different than my business, I'm taking it in a whole new direction. I'm really, really honing in, right? And creating that seven figures that I'm saying I'm going to do, right?
Right.
It's amazing to watch because that sense of adventure is totally popping up,
Mm.
right? And so even though like I'm still getting that gut feeling and I'm getting that spine tingle and everything like that, the idea of the actions I'm taking is exciting. It's fun. It's wonderful. It's that glorious hike and the vista at the very top, right? And so that's the piece to this. Like, it's all about trusting yourself.
Yep.
It really does come back. So let's talk about like some of these different types of uh intuition, right? Because I hear this too, like I don't get that gut feeling. I'm not getting the spine tingles, right? I'm not getting that sense of adventure. So what are some other ways that people get this?
Yeah. So I want to point out one thing really quickly, which is that every person has access to all 60. So
Yes.
I really lean into what is your top one, your strength. And let's lean into your strengths, not your quote unquote weaknesses, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
ones that align with you first and foremost, instead of trying to build up or utilize the other styles. So I bring that up because you said right there, three different ones, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I trust my gut. I get this gut feeling. And then I'm getting tingles up my back. And then it's the sense of adventure. So
Mm-hmm.
what I would encourage to look at is, and this is where it comes into play, where I know for business strategy, it's sense of adventure. And it sounds like it might be for you too,
Mm-hmm.
where you're putting together the pieces and the strategy of how do I grow to seven figures? And that sense of adventure is the guiding piece. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you're creating, let's say, your content, or you're building out something that's maybe not the overarching strategy, but it's this content creation, your communications creativity, then maybe you know it's aligned when you're getting that up your back, woo,
Yeah. Yep.
and then maybe, right, you're getting that gut feeling when it's, should I go speak at this event? Or is this a client that's a good fit for me to work with one-on-one? And you get that gut clench of, no, then you know it's a hard no. And if it's a, ooh, butterflies, then you know it's a yes. And so I would encourage starting to look at how those different types of intuition work situationally, because that's when you're like, oh, this is aligned for this. Because when we
Yes.
look at it and go, well, I had this idea and I didn't get that sense of adventure, then what happens is we think that maybe that wasn't the right fit. But you got back tingles. We're not negating that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that said, right, there's a lot of pieces that we look at in business to be able to, and I'm a business coach, so I'll talk about intuition to business
Right.
this whole time. Feel free to apply to personal as well. But I like to look at it as your areas of, okay, what is my intuitive strength to know that I'm tapping into my most authentic self, right? What is
Yes.
that intuitive strength?
Yes.
I like to look at what is the intuitive strength for inspirational alignment. And what I mean by that is like, what is that? Oh, I got a download, or I just channeled this, or if you believe in God, God's talking to me and saying this, right? That's that inspirational alignment. How do I know that this is divine guidance? And then that could be full body tingles, that could be all these other things, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
I like to look at what is my top intuitive strength for wealth calibration. How do I
Mm-hmm.
know this is going to make me money? Because there can be a ton of great ideas that we have in business that we're super
Yes.
excited about. But if it doesn't have the partnership of, and this feels right because I'm using this intuitive strength, then it can be like, okay, well, this might be a really good idea, but I also need cash. So
Yes.
let's look at that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I mentioned business strategy. We also look at things like selling. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if you're meeting with a client and you're like, oh, I got butterflies, this is it, this is great, they're going to be such a great fit, and I'm going to love working with them, and they're going to get the results. Like your body or your intuition can tell you that in those moments of selling, instead of that desperation of, well, I just please anybody, right? You don't want to do that.
Right.
You want to work with the right clients.
Yes.
And then, like, even peak performance. Okay, how do I know that my morning routine is setting me up for success? Well, I have this intuitive hit that comes from that. So, what I mean by all of this is that it situationally can make a big difference. And like I said, we're even seeing that with what you just pointed out, which
Yep.
is different moments and different components can have slightly different intuitive vibrations.
Yes. Yes, and it's so true. It's so true because the thing is too, and you were talking about like how like different pieces it's like a moving piece, you know what I mean? That's kind of what you're saying here, and that because these pieces are moving, like yeah, like with business and things like that. I love the idea of like the adventure, and but it also does need to be that needle mover,
Yeah.
right? It absolutely does. And but with my home life and with my kids and things like that, the idea of okay, that gut intuition, that gut feeling, right? It's a little different. They do play into part in both places though, right?
Yeah.
Because like the sense of adventure is totally like morphing over into my home life and my kids and things like that. And now we're like, okay, guess what? We're gonna go out to Kanab in June and we're gonna go play and we're gonna go have fun, and because they need that sense of adventure too.
Right.
And with my business, that gut intuition is also coming over into my clients because oftentimes as I'm like listening to their stories and things like that, I just get this like ping from my gut that, hey, guess what? Like this is really what they're struggling with. And so you need to ask like these specific questions. And so the thing is that's really amazing about this is you're talking about a compass, right? And if you take a look at a compass, yeah, you've got like the north, the south, the east, and the west, but really there's actually roughly around 60 different directions that compass has, right? And you could be like just a little bit off of north, or like right in between north and west, and that's the piece that I want to point out here is we're talking literally about a compass, right? And the compass, depending on our directions, and I think that our directions aren't completely straight. I think that they weave, and I think that they're like this road, right? It's going to match the weaves in the road. You know what I mean?
Well, and to share an example from my own intuitive pieces. So the business strategy side is that sense of adventure, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Even before, and you'll laugh at this, when I was like, I'm not intuitive, and I was mad about it, when I was working with clients, I would hear a voice say, ask this.
Mm-hmm.
So then I felt like, well, I'm not intuitive for me. And I think for a lot of coaches and business owners, that happens too, where it's like, I'm not intuitive for me and my goals, but I can hear it for my client, or I can do it for my clients. So in my case, I know that I'm working with clients that intuitively I'm guided through hearing a voice. And it's usually my own voice, but I hear it say something completely off the wall, like ask about this, to the point where working with a client in a business capacity. And I had the thought, heard the thought, ask about her shoes. Oh, okay. I'm not going to do that, right? Like, no, we're talking business. and ask about her shoes. So I'm like, hey, those are really cute shoes. She goes, oh, thanks. I'm like, I did it. I don't know, move on. So we go back and then we're whiteboarding out stuff. Ask about her shoes. And I'm like, hey, I know it sounds really weird, but like, do your shoes have a story or anything going on with them? Like, totally tangent from what we're talking about. But do you have a story or anything happening with your shoes? She goes, oh, these are brand new and I'm really excited about them. I love them. They were like hiking kind of shoes. Hiking might be a theme here today. Anyway, hiking
That's
kind of shoes.
okay.
And she's like, yeah, I'm really excited. I just got them. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's really cool. And then she goes, actually, I kind of have a shoe problem. I said, you have a shoe
Oh.
problem? She goes, yeah, I can't stop buying shoes. And she goes, so I just bought this pair and I'm excited about it, but like, I don't need them. I just keep on buying shoes. And I said, well, can I ask? And I got the thought again, ask what kind of shoes. And I said, are you buying like high heels and stilettos, sandals, or are you buying like boots, flats, those kind of things? She goes, actually, it's all like boots and flats. I'm not buying high heels. I'm not buying flip-flops. And I said, okay, so where does it feel like you need more stability in your life?
Ooh.
And the opened, just boom, all these pieces came out where we were talking about business, but she didn't have the stability in her personal life. And it was coming out through buying
Yes.
shoes. And I got the thought, you need to talk to her about her shoes. And through opening that up and looking at the instability in her personal life, we were able to solve and resolve for that. And that, of course, supported her being able to grow in her business.
Yep.
So when I look at, did I have a sense of adventure? Absolutely not. Like I was actually like, what are we doing asking about her shoes? I don't want to do that. But I had the voice come in. And so I know when I'm working with clients, I will hear just kind of like what you had said too, but I will hear what needs to be said. So there's these different types and categories of the 60. And so the first one, which is very much in our Claire's, is knowing, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, and smelling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our Claire pieces, and I'm not going to go into it's clairvoyance. No, it's just
Yeah, you can
smell.
study. At least listeners, you can study this stuff, right?
I'm very much, let's simplify. Do you have
Yes.
that sense of knowing? Did you see something like a vision or a dream? Did you hear something like I did? Did you have a feeling? Did you taste something in your mouth? Right. And that's kind of where we get these what is the word I'm looking for? I always call them Taylorisms, but I know that's not right because I call them for myself. But it's these phrases that we use, colloquialisms. It's these phrases that we use throughout our language. And so it's like, that person gave me a bad taste in my mouth.
Yes.
That is straight up from somebody being like, having that tasting sense of intuition and being like, bad taste in my mouth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's true. That's so true. Oh my
And
God.
then of course, then you have like smelling, like, just I don't like that. This doesn't smell right. That's
Yes,
another
right?
phrase, right? I don't know. This doesn't smell right to me. Like that's a phrase that is in our
This
culture.
smells fishy. I always say that, right? Mm-hmm.
And so those are words and phrases that are natural to our language that actually come from people that use their intuition of those senses.
Yes. Oh, this is good. This is good. I'm just sitting back here, guys, like loving everything I'm learning. So I hope you guys are loving this too, because I'm one of those too that have like those clairs, right? Like I get the visions, I hear things in my head, in my ears, like all those things. So yeah, like I get the clairs too a lot.
And
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
again, every person is different. And so where that's a strength, and you have access to it, right? Everyone has
Mm-hmm.
access to all 60, just a matter of where they're strongest for the individual. But I start there and that grouping because they are the most familiar
Mm-hmm.
and you usually have at least one of those in your key areas.
Yes, makes sense. Makes sense.
So then the second is really about, the second category is really about healing. So it's this ability to heal minds, hearts, bodies, souls, and wholly. And it's very custom to the individual, but it's where you have this intuitive way to be able to help heal other people and to heal yourself. And the way that you can receive that is custom to every individual, but it's all under like, okay, healing minds. So that's things where like maybe you didn't hear something in the Claire, but you were able to know, hey, this person needs help here. And it's things like thought work, mindsets, belief breakthroughs, those kind of things. And then, like, obviously, body, that's being able to, in many cases, some people are like, I can just touch something, or I can feel it in my body in a specific area. So I know people that they'll get a pain in their body if it's in a spot in their body, if it's not, and a like warm feeling in a spot on their shoulder if it is aligned, right? So it's knowing those kind of things, and it's like healing in those areas. Another one that I love is a group category of it's about other people, but it's love of individuals, love of groups, gold colored glasses, disclosure, holding space, and unpacking. Now, this is one of the things that I love, because if we look at like disclosure, I'm sure that those of you listening, have you ever had somebody just come up and start telling you their life story?
Yeah, that'd be me all the time.
And you're like, I don't know okay, yeah, great. I'm happy to hear it, right?
Yes.
But that can be a sense of like people will just disclose information to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a way of intuition in a couple of components where, one, listen to what they're saying, because there might be something there for you to know.
Right.
Right. So having that
Mm-hmm.
intuition of disclosure, people come and disclose information to you and you're like, I actually needed to hear that. And how many times has that happened where you're like, this is exactly what I needed right in this moment. And I never would have known if I had just been like, I'm sorry, I'm busy, I gotta go. Right. Like, so
Seriously, right?
leaning
Right.
into that. And so that's one of that group that I really love. And unpacking is one of my other top ones. And you're seeing that I'm doing it now. But like I unpack things. And so I have an intuitive strength of being able to see something big and massive. And this is why a set of the clients that I work with are what I call are enterprise startups, which
Mm-hmm.
is that they're enterprise style companies that are just starting up, but they're already valuated at the 10 million mark, right? So like they're in this startup phase, but they're already an enterprise size company. And seeing their big vision and what they do and being able to unpack that and say, okay, here's the steps we need to take. Here's what we need to do here. Here's where our operations are. Here's where our marketing is. Like that ability to unpack. But
Mm,
using that as my intuitive strength when I'm working with clients is huge, because I
that
know
is
when
a
it's
huge.
yeah, and I know when it's aligned because I feel, oh, I'm unpacking. I know because I'm paying attention to it. And I think that's a core part of this as well, is that your intuition oftentimes can be coming through those things that come easy that we disregard.
Yes. You know, I want to actually point something out here too that's really interesting as I'm listening to this. Like, because like I obviously like for enterprise startups, like, yeah, don't come to me. Right, go to Taylor. But like when it comes to like people starting like a coaching business or an online space or even like online teaching and like things that I do understand, right? I get that like in unpacking and stuff like that. But I think sometimes too, like what I'm hearing you say with these intuitions is they often can kind of like like combine and collaborate inside of you because like with me, when somebody comes to me and they talk about like their block and their money block or like even a relationship block, like where their blocks are, right? It's just the same thing. Like I just get that healing, that intuitive healing coming up, but then all of a sudden like here comes the unpacking, right? And we unpack like what's really going on to we get like down to their roots in like seriously nanoseconds, right? And then we can figure out that root, we can unroot it, plant something different, and you know they're gone, they go with this stuff. And so what I'm hearing you say is fascinating because it really is like it is so much like a compass, right? Like we're weaving in between a lot of these things almost all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. Well, and there's one that is very low on my strengths list, but I do something called intuitive strengths business blueprints.
Mm-hmm.
What that is that I get permission from the individual to connect into their energy, and then I channel what their top strengths are in 5 key areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I share this because it had something really interesting happening. I did several in a week time frame. Like I did like 5. And I had one come up, and their strength in wealth calibration was the strength of sonar. Okay. And I'll get to what that is in a second. Okay.
Ooh, yes.
Wealth
That's intriguing.
calibration and sonar. And then another person, which I was like, okay, triple check, is this right? Because I don't want it to be crossing over from the other person. But I had another person have the strength of sonar, but they had it in authentic alignment. Okay.
Okay.
So when you look at, okay, here's the strength of sonar. What it is your ability to go deep and to go deep in levels. So imagine that, like, okay, you're starting at the top of your head and you go down to your nose, beep, go down to your chin, beep, go down to your shoulders, beep, right? Think sonar beeping. Okay. And you go down and you go down and go down until you hit something, right? Until there is beep, 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 right? Or you can see something, all of that, right? But
metal detecting. I call that metal detecting.
yeah. So
Right.
it's this strength of sonar or metal detecting. And they, in both cases, it was, okay, here's the strength. It means being able to go deep into your body specifically. Well, for the one that had wealth calibration, her channeled message came up as, and in the blueprint, what we do is I say, here's what the strength is. Here's how you're using it. So custom to you. Here's how you can strengthen it. And here's your intensity and the percentage of time that you're using it. So we kind of go full function per each strength. With that said, for the person with wealth calibration, her channeled message was go deep and find chunky blocks in your livers, in your liver and your knees, and clear those out to bring in wealth.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, if I have the strength of sonar, I'm going in for wealth calibration. I'm going through my body going, all right, where are there blocks? Where are there things? Just like you were already saying, right? But where are these things that I can feel now that I'm paying attention with my sense and my strength of sonar that I can feel are keeping me stuck from money? And then being able to dive into that deeper and be like, okay, I got this stuff going on my knees. What is this? How can I always like to say disintegrate. How can that just disintegrate away and clear the path for wealth through my body and through my intuition? So now the one for the authentic self and the authentic alignment. Hers were that to use the strength of sonar to block out all outside forces because her most authentic self is deep within and she needs to set aside the time using the strength of sonar to be able to tap into her truest self and then bring that to light.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating how I could say, oh yeah, here's the strengths, but it's custom and situational where if you're your authentic self for this strength versus wealth calibration for this strength, but you're using the intuitive strength in the same way. In the case of sonar, your ability to go deep and find and feel those key things.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love this. And this is why, like, as I'm learning about this kind of stuff, like, this is fascinating. Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating because, I also talk a lot about like the masculine and the feminine energy and how important the feminine energy is to the feminine entrepreneur, right? And intuition, that's one of the biggest things we talk about. But, as I think about like my own intuition and, I talk about like the masculine is the head and the feminine is the neck and, it's the feminine that turns the head to pay attention to certain things, right? And I think about like in my own marriage and things like that, like just, and with my boys too. Go figure. I have 4 boys, okay? And right now I'm their feminine neck. Right now helping them see like what the things that they need to see. And it all comes down to intuition, right? And we do the same thing in our businesses. This is like what's really key here is, our business can often be that masculine, sometimes where we're actually helping it see like what are the possibilities, like take a look at this direction, right? And we want to go this direction. And so the intuition piece of us is really honestly helping us take really, really amazing, fabulous, determined directions, in our business. And it's so key to the feminine entrepreneur. It
Oh, I
is.
100% agree. 100%. But also, I mean, I'm the kind of entrepreneur where I'm like, ooh, I could do that. I could do that. I could do
I am
that.
too.
I could do that. Right. And so it's like, okay, but and going back to the sense of adventure is my top intuitive strength for business strategy. I'm like going back to, I could do that. am I actually excited to do that? No, it's just one of those things that you saw and you went, oh, I could do that. Or that's working for them. I could do that. Maybe that'll work for me. Like we get caught up in those thoughts. And then it's
Yes.
like, no, 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 let's pull back. Let's see where this actually is for me. And it's 9 times out of 10, I'm like, good idea. I could totally execute that. Do I want to? Am I excited about it? No, it's not aligned, right? And I
Yes.
think that's the core part of all of this. And intuition, we talked a little bit about this in our last episode, but I utilize the I move method.
Mm-hmm.
And it stands for intuition, marketing, operations, velocity, and execution.
Mm-hmm.
And it could very easily, we could take out the I and throw out the woo woo stuff and just have it be, let's focus on marketing and operations and velocity giving strategies and execution, right? We could totally do that. And those can feel more masculine. However, it starts with the I because when we can take aligned and congruent,
Yes.
right? When our head turns and we go, yep, this is the right way to go. Now we can take aligned and congruent action to grow ourselves, our business, our profits. I mean, all of those incredible things. But
Mm-hmm.
it starts with knowing how you receive intuition and being able to know that to take action on it.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
your marketing comes into play and being up your authentic self. And I just had this thought and it feels aligned because I'm using my strength of discernment, right? This is the right thing for me. I'm going to go. And you're
Mm-hmm.
able to take that aligned congruent action faster and faster the more you're tapped into your intuition. And I think this is an important delineation.
Yeah.
At least it is for me, which is people say tap into your intuition all the time. I was one of those people who didn't even think I had intuition.
Yeah.
And if I have one of these 60 strengths and I don't know that it's, for example, sonar,
Mm-hmm.
then I use your intuition. I'm like, I don't know to go deep within to clear those blocks. I don't know those types of things. And so having even just a label and a brief understanding of what your top strength can be is massive to unlocking being able to connect to your intuition more frequently. And then when you're doing that, it connects, like you said, there's this intertwining happening where, well, this intuitive strength connects with this one, which connects with this one, which connects with this one. But because you're open to it and you're understanding, and as humans, we like to be able to label and say, this is what's happening. If you know your top strengths and you know of the 60 strengths where you really thrive, you can now see where things are happening, tap back into that when you need to, and you are now taking aligned and congruent action daily, hourly,
Yes.
minute by minute, second by second, to the point where it becomes second nature and you are just in flow. Coming back
Yes. I love
to
it.
that feminine entrepreneur.
Yes, I love this. And so here's my question. So would you say that, because I'm thinking about like the times in my own business, because I've totally done this, right? Like where I'm like, oh, I could do this thing and I can do this thing. And I drove my business coach absolutely nuts at one point because she's like, just pick one, right? Let's go with one thing. Like you've got too many things on the table and it's distracting you from the one thing, right? And she's even told me that. And I remember like sitting back and I'm like, well, I don't know. I like them all.
Yeah.
Right. But what I started noticing is I would like try to go one direction and like all of a sudden, like there was like one problem after another, after another, after another, after another. And like my way, quote unquote, was hedged up. Right. And then, but then I go another direction and it's like, boom, another hit, boom, another hit, boom, another hit. Like this is exactly like everything is aligning. And it's like you were saying, that aligned action, right? Because when I went that direction, and I'm like, for example, my book, right? When I decided, excuse me, when I decided I was going to write, um, my coach that I've been with for 8 years, love her with all my heart and soul, but she's never written a book, so she didn't know what to do about it. This book coach, who's amazing, she's her name is Bridget Birch Cook. I want to say Bridget Cook. It's not. It's Bridget Birch Cook.
Who
Gosh,
helps
and
with books.
who helps with books. She's really good, and she's a New York Times bestseller, right? She drops into my lap. The money to be able to hire her drops into my lap, right? And it's like boom, 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 like all these intuition, all these hits, and here we go. We're writing a book, right? But when it came to me like doing like certifications or um like for an example, I was like, because I love the idea of like money and stuff like that, like helping women with money. And I had this idea that maybe, oh, well, maybe I could do like insurance selling or something like that and help them with like their financial planning. My way was hedged up in every single direction. I couldn't even tell you how bad that was not a good idea, right? That was just not a good idea. And as I got thinking about it, I'm like, I really don't love that direction anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the idea of the book, oh, I'm in fire. I love it. You know what I
Lights
mean?
up. Mhm.
Yeah. And so, like, do you think that's kind of like one of the ways we can kind of tell too, if like we're in that intentional, that intuitive, and that aligned actions?
I will say yes and no, because there are oftentimes obstacles that can come up that we're meant to work through that will help us later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all throughout my corporate career, I was 17 years as a corporate executive in operations, leadership, marketing, strategy, like the works. And it's crazy to the point where I have worked with clients and done projects that I don't even remember doing that were
Mm-hmm.
hard, like hard to get through and everything else. And you had roadblocks you had to overcome. And then 3 years later, I'm working with a client and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, actually, I've done this before. And if we did this, this, and this, and there was this roadblock, and we were able to get through it this way. And now I can be able to save time with my clients. So I was going to say, be weary of dropping off too early when something might feel hard.
Mm-hmm.
In that same vein, you do find that when it is aligned and congruent action, stuff does just drop in your lap one after another, after another, after another, and it just starts to flow and happen. So I'm going to say kind of a combo of that. But where I think it's important to, what I think is most important to note about this is that we have all taken paths or attempted paths that have been hard, have been hedged, have been blocked, and we start to feel like, well, that was a waste of time. Well,
Mm-hmm.
no, because you can now look at
Yeah.
it and go, I tried it and it didn't work and it wasn't aligned. But also, when you are tapped into your intuition, so much time, effort, and energy is saved because any blocks that do come actually end up being really minor and they're for the greater good, as opposed to the blocks of this, I'm just hitting my head against a brick wall over and over and over again, right? But when
Mm-hmm.
you take the aligned and congruent action, you're like, okay, this feels, I'm going to say feels, but it could be I hear, I taste, whatever, but I'm going to say feels. This feels right via my top intuitive strength, or this is connecting correctly, or I can see all of it, or whatever it is. When you can connect to that, then the pathways open up in that quick succession, as opposed to wasting time, effort, energy, money, all of that on processes that you feel like you should be doing but aren't aligned and congruent because you didn't listen to your intuition. And I would be willing to bet that if I said, even if I don't know your top intuitive strength, if anyone listening right now feels like maybe the thought came to your head, like maybe I'm down the wrong path and because I keep on hitting these blocks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's your intuition kicking in going, maybe we are. Like, why would I think this thought if I was 100% confident that this is the way that it goes and it's aligned and congruent for me? Right.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's starting to look at those types of things. And that's a door opening, right? And I love to use this phrase, it's small hinges open big doors.
Oh,
So
I like that. I'm gonna have to use that.
you have the hinge of listening to your intuition, even if it just opens it just a little bit, but that can swing open the door to what is actually aligned and congruent for you.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Okay. So I I love the idea of like coming back and even talking about like, how to ignite our intuitions, so that way they really work for our lives and working for our businesses. But I know that, our time is a little short. And unfortunately, guys, I know I love Taylor as much as you guys do. I know you're probably in the background crying right now, like, no, we want more Taylor. But I do want, you mentioned that at the beginning that you had something also for them to, like my listeners to get and to latch onto right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't gone through all 60
Yes, obviously.
on this call or on this interview. And even so, I could give you the list of 60 and you could look at it, and whatever pops out could be oh yeah, this is it. But I mentioned that I do intuitive strengths business blueprints. Now, granted, that's a 60-page plus custom blueprint guide for the audience. If you want to do that, that's something that's open and available. But I would love to offer that for those of you listening, if you email me with the subject line 1 strength, and you put in the body copy your name and your little bit of a description about your business, then I will respond and send you the list of all 60 intuitive strengths, and I will tell you which one, and this is a permission thing, if you email me, it's permission that I can tap into your energy. I will tell you which of those 60 strengths is the top one for wealth calibration. So you're going to email me at, super easy to remember here, Taylor@taylorproctor.com.
Geez, I don't know if I can handle that one, Taylor.
Proctor is spelled Proctor. Taylor is traditional spelling. So
K-A-Y.
Taylor@taylorproctor.com. Send me the subject line 1 strength, put in the body copy your name and a little bit about your business. That acts as permission for me to be able to tap into your energy and help determine what is your top intuitive strength for wealth calibration. And I will send you the full list of all 60 strengths.
And just in case you guys are wondering, I will be emailing Taylor as soon as we're done here, because I totally want to hear this, right? But Taylor, oh my goodness, thank you so much again for being here. I absolutely love your energy. I love your wealth of knowledge and just the yumminess that you bring with you everywhere you go. Thanks, you guys, for listening. Definitely go email Taylor. You will not regret it. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys.
All right, Boundary Boss babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other boss babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the send us a text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, boss babes.